Yeah, man. They cannot believe how much
that task force as a whole gets restructured, there's never going to be a change in it. Because one of the things I realized growing up is the minute one of them gets tried, there is now a case that can be used across the country.
Right.
So because there's a case we can always refer to, and this was the situation. So as long as it's not something as obvious as the George Floyd situation, they're always going to turn their nose and say, no, we're not going to trial that person. Regardless of what it is. Everything is going to hide behind their rules and regulations of was it justified? Regardless of how they feel. Oh, I thought he had this. Or it looked like that was there. Or, well, this is what I end up doing instead. Unless you obviously broke protocol, they will never get found guilty.
Well, the difference between the George Floyd in this situation is which you got a situation where you have excessive force.
True.
So that's after the fact.
Right.
What we're talking about is in the moment of decision making, are you using protocols that you're supposed to use?
Exactly.
And so the thing about it is that they don't ever want you to go into the point of questioning if that person used the right protocols, the right mindset, all that stuff. They don't want you ever to. So we can't even get this dude in court to defend himself.
Because if you start questioning if they did what they were supposed to do per protocol, the follow-up question is, well, what's protocol?
Right. Exactly.
And now once you start questioning what's protocol, now you're diving deeper in the way they behave and how they do things. And once that gets to questioning, now you have a very strong platform for police reform. And now the good old boys got to go. And now we got to do it completely differently. And they don't want that. That's too much change that the world is not ready for. Back it up. Too much change America's not ready for. Okay. America.
There's a lot of people ready for some change.
Right. There's a lot of people because Canada just banned they have a temporary ban on the purchase of all guns, of all firearms.
Wow.
Yes, current moment in time, no one can buy firearms. Now, I don't know how much of a change that's going to make because Canada never came off as a super violent place anyway. But you know, I don't live there, so just like people who don't know what goes on in Milwaukee because they don't live here, I don't know what goes on in Canada. So it may be a few cities that's a little bit wild, where something like that is necessary to put in place. But I think that's a step in the right direction. We can see how their citizens behave now that they can't have guns. Because I was listening to ABC News. I think I was listening to one of their podcasts this morning when I was getting dressed, and they were reviewing the situation with the school shooting in Texas and how the state representative, the state senator for that area, that's who they were interviewing, the state senator in that area, and how he was trying to figure out like why the police force wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. Like it wasn't until videos leaked that you seen officers sitting around waiting for the call while parents are literally trying to break barricades to get in to save their kids, as the parents should. And it wasn't until one officer was like, fuck it, we need to go stop dude. You know?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. It wasn't until one of them said, this fuck protocol. We need to go. This needs to be ended right here or right now. And he was like, we need to do something about gun reform. And he openly admitted it. He owns several guns himself. He specifically said, I had 7. Because I remember he kept making sure when he was doing this kind of, I have 7. I have 7 myself, but I don't have assault rifles or high power rifles like that, that's the only thing that seems to be the conversation in America about gun control.
Right.
Is not that we shouldn't have them, but maybe we don't need these super high tech ones. That the next conversation after that episode was done was immediately about how we're sending said high power rifles overseas in the war with Russia.
Right.
So it's okay for us to use them over there to kill people because they're cutting off our oil supply, but you're not doing anything here in America about our gun situations. And then the conversation came up that really ticked me off was, well, we need to, keep guns out the hands of criminals and those who don't need to have these kind of weapons. Well, if I'm not mistaken, 97% of your mass shooters don't look like who y'all categorize as criminals. It's always everyday random people who just happen to have a bad day.
Right.
Quotations for those who are listening, happen to have a bad day. So I don't know what they're going to do in regards to that. And unfortunately, gun violence is the reason why we're having this conversation here today.
Absolutely.
So first of all, welcome. Thank you for tuning into another edition of Where I Come From, Milwaukee. It is I, Mr. Tone Deaf. I'm back in the building. The only requirement to be on this show is you have to be from Milwaukee. I am joined today by a couple of guests that I just met, one of them at the Heal the Hood Festival 10th anniversary. So shout out to Adamo Butler for putting on yet another stellar event. I think this is probably your biggest one you've done yet. And you have been rocking with the Heal the Hood as long as TDR has been around. So I am proud to see you and your growth in regards to that. And I want to make sure I gave you your flowers before you're no longer with us in regards to that. So thank you for doing that, my young man. So would you like to go ahead and introduce yourselves? Start with you.
All right. Claude Motley, born and raised here in Milwaukee, obviously. The subject matter of my film, When Claude Got Shot, and just talks about, an event that happened that we all know too well and too unfortunately is that got shot during an attempted carjacking. And so my film goes through the whole process. And so that's who I am. And I guess that's what we're going to be here to talk about.
Definitely.
And I am Victoria Davison Adams, and I am also a subject in the film When Claude Got Shot. Unfortunately, I had to defend myself against the same person who shot Claude, and that's why I am here today.
Okay. Now, I actually watched it twice.
Oh, wow.
I had to watch it twice because one, of course, I had to watch it just to, get key points about it, things I might want to point out and talk about it. But I watched it the second time because I'm one of them people who I dissect a lot of things. So first of all, I want to thank you for making this movie. This documentary. Yeah. The reason why I'm thanking you directly because it allows people to see things that a lot of people don't tend to see. Usually the aftermath of what happens to victims in situations like this. And you actually gave us 3 separate perspectives. What was happening to you, what was happening to you, and more importantly as well, what was happening to him.
Yep.
The one thing I did like about it was the level of vulnerability you had in here. Ironically, where you guys shot at, it's about 4 blocks from where I was living at the time.
Wow.
So when you first initially, when you were reacting to things that were happening that particular night, I seen the AutoZone. And me and the wife was like, that's right around the corner. That's right there. That's there. So immediately we're gauging that intersection block area. And immediately after seeing that, we started thinking about our own experiences and things that we have dealt with it in the city. Lucky for me, I have never been face-to-face carjacked. I've definitely had my car stolen. Wife has had her car stolen several times. For those of you guys who don't know, currently right now in the city of Milwaukee, we're going into our second summer where we have a lot of youth that are heavy into stealing specific cars that they're now going by the name of Kia Boys. Ironically, as of today, I also found out that there's a documentary about them that was released as of today as well, too. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Just found out about it. So had I known about it before I got here, I probably would have watched it or at least skimmed through it to see if it's even worth mentioning. But I'm definitely going to check that out. But the youth is actually very disfranchised right now. And I want to specifically use that terminology and not out of control. Because a lot of them are just misguided. And as you continue to watch When Claude Got Shot, you come to find out that's the situation with the young man as well, Nathan. He definitely came from a 2-parent household. He went to a fabulous school system. As an individual who has been part of a 220 system myself, where being bused, or even my sister who living 3 blocks from Marshall High School, but going to Sherwood and experiencing that culture shock, definitely I could understand some of the things that his mom was saying he felt. Okay, I definitely could understand that, because sometimes when you just don't fit in, you're gonna gravitate, unfortunately, back to where you do fit in. Unfortunately, he happened to fit in, or he felt he fit in, to an area in the city of Milwaukee called the Meadows. Okay. All my friends who lived in the Meadow, who have immediately moved to the Meadows, actually do look at our peoples a little bit differently because of the Meadows. Okay, so all of that close relatedness in the documentary really kind of hit home for me, which is another reason why I ended up watching it a second time. But the biggest thing is, one thing I have to say is, I could not have gone through what you went through. Okay. When it was all said and done, how many surgeries did you end up having?
10 surgeries.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard was 10.
Yeah.
I couldn't do 2. Okay, and I only would have been able to do 1 because the first one was mandatory. So how was that experience, knowing, because I know one time you end up having like a broken hinge where it was an emergency one.
Yeah. You know, the thing about it is that, you know, one thing that we talked about, I had a screening, we were talking about mental health,
right?
You know, and one thing you find out, especially coming from Milwaukee and coming from, you know, when you talk about, you just said, I've definitely had my car stolen. That's almost something that you just commonplace to say,
right?
But these are barriers. When you got your car stolen, that disrupted your life. But you had to continue to go. You just had to find a way.
Exactly.
And that's what we find out that we do all the time, every single day when we grew up here in Milwaukee. Now, it's probably all kinds of cities. I'm not going to just say, yeah. But
it happens everywhere. But we are talking about here because this is where we're from.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the thing about it is that I'm conditioned to continue.
Right.
Just continue to strive, put those goals in front of you and just keep going. So when you talk about those surgeries, I remember one time in the movie, I kind of felt embarrassed because I'm talking to the doctor and I'm almost like happy to be there. And I remember the time because 2 of my teeth and they got loose and they were infected. And I couldn't chew food.
Right.
You know, and I was I'm telling you, I was looking forward to the surgery, which almost makes me feel like I'm almost conditioned, you know, like, you know, to the pain and the relief and the pain and that's what I was going through. And it psychologically gets to you, you know, and at one point in time, you don't know, you know, fortunately I was able to have the strength. And I don't ever say, this is one of the things that you just said about the movie, is that this is a Milwaukee story,
right?
You know, and when you look at it, you also see my support system. And I draw from that. You know what I'm saying? I had people there to pick me up every time I felt down. So I drew from that, and I was able to continue to go forward. Not everybody has that support system like that, you know, and so their breaking point might be different than mine.
Right.
So, but yet and still, I can tell you right now, I was, it definitely was an experience that I just, you know, I'm happy I made it through, but it definitely, I'm trying to still get the pieces together and go forward.
So let me back up here a little bit. I have to remind myself that people listening probably haven't watched it, so they don't understand it.
Right.
So
right.
just for y'all to know, back in 2014, Claude had got shot in the face during a carjacking. The carjacking ended up being a young man. He was like 15 at the time.
He was 15 at the time.
Young man, 15 at the time. One thing that he does state in the documentary was the only reason why he shot was because no one had ever fled the scene before, and his instant reaction was to do that. The reason why I want to have a conversation with Claude was not because of the carjacking itself or the fact that he finally had the moment to sit down with Nathan, which I'm going to ask you about that too, because I definitely want to know where your mind was that moment you sat down. Because when me and the wife was sitting there watching it, and the type of table they had y'all at, I was like, they should put them at each end of the table. Like, why would you put like? Because if that was me, I'm gonna hit him.
Right.
I would have hit him, even though I would have talked to him nicely afterwards.
Right.
But my first instinct would have been to hit him. He was entirely too close to not get hit. So that says more about you than anything. But that's actually me. I would have hit him.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
Kid or not.
Yeah.
But so for those guys, he ended up getting shot in the face, which lucky for him, he survived.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is it definitely was a journal of mental health more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we go over to this lovely young lady right here to my right, he attempted to. Now, what was the situation there with you and him?
I was getting home from work. I went to work and went to the gym. I pulled up in front of my house. I was getting out of my car, and 2 cars, one of which he was in, they tried to carjack me.
Okay.
And as I was getting out of the car. I went to the passenger side to get my bag out. They surrounded me with the 2 cars. They got out. They said, I want the keys. I want the car. I want everything. And I had my firearm with me because I'm a conceal and carry holder.
Okay.
So when they said that, I said, you want what? Like, because I was kind of shocked.
Right.
And they said it again. They said, I want the keys. I want the car. I want everything. And then he said, hey, bro, go get the chopper. So right when he said that, I'm like, okay, they're going to kill me. So right when he said that, I grabbed my gun. And when they saw me grab my gun, they started fighting with me. And that's when I started shooting. So Nathan was the one that was in front of me. So he got shot first. I turned to shoot the other person who came out the car too, but he had already ran and they got in the car and then they sped off and left Nathan laying on the ground. I ran up to my door because this happened in front of my house.
Right.
My husband was in the house with the kids sleeping. I ran to my door, bammed on the door to get my husband's attention because at this point I didn't know where my keys was. I didn't know where my phone was. So I yelled for my husband and bammed on the door. He came out. I told him, call 911, explain what happened. We called the police and the police came and that kind of started the whole journey.
Mentally, where was your head at that time?
I was scared. I was angry. I was kind of shocked. Like I couldn't believe when they first pulled up, it would be guys across the street from my house. And I know them. And at first, when they pulled up, I thought it was just the guys across the street. So I didn't pay them attention, really.
Right.
But when they aggressively came to me and said, I want the keys, I want the car, I want everything, that's when it really hit me like, okay, it's not the guys from across the street. And they don't mean me well. So I was afraid. Like I literally thought they were going to kill me.
Okay. I'm sorry I made you go down that memory lane again.
No, that's okay.
Okay. No, it's because I didn't prep you. I didn't ask. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So, if I'm not mistaken in the story, you eventually end up moving out the neighborhood, correct?
Yes, we sold our house and we moved.
Okay. Did you move because of that situation, or was that already part of the goal to move anyway?
No, we weren't planning on moving, but after the incident, I suffered from PTSD really bad. And I did not want to be in the neighborhood. The neighborhood was already starting to, it was on 14th and Olive.
Okay, I didn't want to ask where it was.
Yeah, it was by Rufus King when I first bought the house. It was a good area. It was a desired area. I had a nice, very nice house. We remodeled it. We put a lot of money into it. We did not want to move. But after the incident, I suffered from PTSD. The neighborhood started going down. Everything reminded me of the incident, and I wanted to be in a safer environment. We started to research areas that were safe, that were desirable, that had the best school districts, and that's what brought us to the area that we moved to.
Okay. Now, in the movie, it also highlighted that you were starting to have a different kind of issue even in the area you moved to.
Yes.
So you want to talk about that a little bit?
So the area that we moved to, we started to experience a lot of racism. It's a predominantly white area. So when we moved there, we will get pulled over by the police. We will get questioned like, where are you going? Where are you coming from? What are you doing? We never got tickets. It was just asking us, where are we going? We told them, we live here. Ultimately, we got our driver's license changed. Well, my husband, he got his driver's license changed to reflect our address. Right. I was cheap. I didn't get mine changed, but he did to reflect the address. I think the police started to get to know us and from pulling us over so much. So they realized we do live in the area. So they didn't harass us anymore. But the neighbors definitely harassed us as well. They will call the police and say there was domestic disturbances when my husband would be in the basement and I would be upstairs in our house, like not even by each other, but just telling us we don't belong in the area. Mm-hmm. They said, this is a white folks' bay. You don't belong over here.
I was gonna say, before you even said the name, I knew exactly the area because once again, like he said earlier, we're conditioned to just deal with certain things. For those of you guys who don't know or have not listened to my podcast, first of all, where the hell y'all been? Milwaukee is a very segregated city. And when we say segregated, meaning there are literal streets where that when you cross that street, you are not only dealing with a different side of town, but a different culture altogether. The city of Milwaukee, you can almost ask any resident what nationality and where they reside at. We know where the Jewish community is. We know where the Hispanic community is. We know where the artsy people are. We know where everybody is, and it's only those people in that area. So Milwaukee is also notorious for redlining as well, too. Yes. Which is part of the reason why this has ended up like the way it is right now, where we are only allowed to be in certain areas. So when we do become successful and we are able to move to these different areas, unfortunately, we have to deal with a different type of segregation. TV shows and movies make really big jokes about this. For an example, Blackish, which just ended their final 8th season, literally has the running joke where the neighbor constantly comes over with multiple different stereotypical ideologies about the family, even to the point where the very last episode, apparently the neighbors had made a bet about how soon they were going to move out the house in regards to it. And unfortunately, these are things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis here in the city of Milwaukee. And it can be very troubling. Just simply for me as an African-American male, it was funny that about a year ago, I won't even say a whole year ago, maybe about 6 months ago, I got pulled over by the sheriffs on the freeway. It was a really rainy day, and I was going to go pick up my girls from over by my sister's house. And the officer pulled me over, did standard check and stuff in regards to him. I handed him my driver's license. He went and did what he had to do, and he left. And it's like, okay, you have a good day. And I was like, damn. I've actually reached the point where I'm too old to be harassed by the cops now. Like, I'm not even considered problematic to them anymore because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that same stop would have went completely different.
Right.
Just simply because I'm an African-American male.
But let me just say something about that. And I often call Milwaukee almost like an open air prison because you're sitting in a situation in which once you go to a certain area, you are at a higher risk of exercising your own freedom to exist in that area.
Exactly.
And they restrict and I'd say this is almost constitutionally a violation because it restricts your ability to travel. Right. Because we're in the thing that you might say, hey, listen, that might have gone, that pullover might have gone, but they still reinforce the fact that we still can pull you over for no reason at all. We just gonna tag you, just touch you, just let you know we here,
right?
Now,
and don't get me wrong, ridiculous. I had a legitimate reason for to get pulled over. I won't lie. Like, it's 2022. My stickers at the time still said 2020, so they had more than the right reason to pull me over. But under normal circumstances, there would have been a deep dive search on me. They would have figured out, okay, your ID don't match where you say you live at. This is that. Now we're gonna give you a ticket for it. They was like, oh, I mean, you know what? Have a nice day.
Right.
You know, get that taken care of.
Take that
taken care of and have a nice day. And that's was like, okay, I'm at the age where I'm too old for it to be a problem to them. You know, and it's funny and we laugh about that, but at the same time, it's sad.
It is.
You know, it's the same time it's sad that this was a whole, I felt so much weight of a black person off my shoulder this time because now y'all won't just bother me because we can't drive certain cars because we automatically get harassed. If we're over in a certain area, like you said, you're instantly being questioned. I remember when I was 20-something years old on my way to Bayshore Mall, when I used to go to UWM for college. And of course, you take that one street that are kind of, it's not Lake Drive, but it's kind of Lake Drive-ish. Yep. And I would get stopped. Like, hey, what are you doing over here? Where are you going? Like, I'm going to the mall. Like, I literally have an econ book in my back seat, bro. What do you think I'm doing? And you want to get upset. You want to get angry about it because, like, why are you stopping me? But then as I got older and I started, on one side of the coin, understanding, homeowners will always complain about protecting their properties. Yep. So not giving them a pass, but at the same time, they pay your wages. They can dictate what goes on. These neighborhoods have full control over what they say and they do. And like you said, your neighbor, when she hears a disturbance, they're automatically going to say, I think it's over there, and they're going to come. Because the minute that they don't come, oh, now we want your badge, we want your pension, we want this from you because you didn't bend to us in that moment. So some of them are technically doing their jobs, but other ones get a kick out of it. And unfortunately, the ones that get a kick out of it are the ones that get publicized so much that we don't trust nobody if your skin happens to have melanin in it in regards to it. But let's get back to this Bible because we can go for days. We can go for days.
Absolutely.
One of the most beautiful things about the documentary that I love was, like I said before, we saw the after effects of everything. All three of y'all, we saw the after effects of that one particular situation in regards to it. And I think yours that I really gravitated to was the pain and suffering. Now, I used to watch court cases all the time, and the wife would want $3 million for just pain and suffering alone, and would be like, she done lost her everlasting mind until you actually physically see what defines pain and suffering. There was a moment in the movie, which was probably raw, was when you and your wife actually had a whole argument trying to get bills taken care of. And like I said, the first time I watched it, I was watching it with the wife. I was like, I completely understand his POV because he did exactly what I would do. I'm frustrated. You bringing up something that's not going to fix the problem at all in this moment in time because you know the circumstances, and this is a never-ending problem. And my wife was like, your wife, let's just start on this. Let's get through this. Let's do ABC. I'm not in the mood to talk right now. Okay, you want one thing done, I want another thing, and you guys had a true argument on the camera, but it was all emotions and it was real,
right?
In regards to that, because at this time I think you were on, I think it was your 8th surgery,
something like that.
It was like your 7th or 8th surgery at this point, and the bills were like when you were like 65 for this, 15 for that, and then the fact that insurance company were just the insurance company dropped you, and then the other ones because you have a pre-existing condition. That's why I said I couldn't be in your shoes. Okay, I couldn't be in your shoes. I probably wouldn't be here because that's a lot. I couldn't handle that kind of pressure. So I do commend you in regards to that. How did you mentally deal with these derailing moments?
You know, it's the thing about it is that they're problems,
right?
You know, and once again, you know, even when you talk about, you know, my wife, and now you probably know who she is and things like that, and you talk about situations where, you know, even though we affectionately, you know, love each other and care about our well-being, we still are definitely pushing each other,
right,
to, you know, do the best we can and things like that. that whole concept, that whole argument that we had right there was a situation in which we just weren't communicating properly,
Right.
through this whole process, because it's all painful.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say is,
Right.
and when she checks out, I might not have checked out, and when I check out, she's not. So it's just a matter of but dealing with that stuff, it is just about really understanding that this isn't something that I'm the only person to have to go through.
Right.
One of the things that is a theme about what I've been talking to people is that I'm just kind of a representation of hundreds and thousands of people that get shot every single day.
Facts.
And I'm fortunate enough to have, the ability to walk through this. I had a camera, like I said, when Brad and my wife sat down to talk about this, and Brad was the reason why we even got into this situation.
Right. That was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah.
What made you start?
Yeah. We, the thing about it is that Brad Lichtenstein, that's the director and the producer of the film. We were good friends long before this, 20 years beforehand. We've been friends for 20 years, I should say. And my son and his oldest son actually went to daycare together. They were together when I got shot. He was staying over to their house. So this was a very organic situation in which, we decided to go through this whole process. So at that point in time, we did understand that it was bigger than just who I am in this situation.
Right.
I am letting people see what hundreds and thousands of people have to go through every single day. And so that gave me the strength to say, hey, listen, I got, I can't be fake. I can't be phony in these situations. This is my life. And if I'm going to let the cameras come in, you get to see it all, unfiltered. So it's tough. It was tough. It's a tough situation. It's still tough. I'm still going through the issues of these bills. They still are heavy. It's a heavy burden, And the bad thing about it is that they play tricks on you. I thought a lot of these bills were already taken care of, and they were coming back with letters saying, you got dropped. We can't, it's a year and a half later, and I'm finding out a bill that I thought was gone, $30,000.
Man. I'm going through that with student loans, right?
Exactly.
Completely understand.
So yeah, it's just a matter of, like I always say, it's about the people around me. It's about the strength that I gain for everyone. It's about my upbringing. It's about everything that comes about. Milwaukee don't build any punks. That's what I say.
Man, when I was in the Air Force, that was the one thing that my sergeants always point out. It was like, first of all, they didn't know there was black people in Milwaukee.
Right.
That's like always the first thing. But secondly, they always say, you are probably one of the most determined person that I know. Mm-hmm. And I was like, bro, if you knew what I had to go through just to get to this point, you'd be surprised that I'm not going harder.
Right.
Right. Like,
right.
You'd be surprised. You would actually call me lazy right now, but I completely understand it. Personal question.
Yeah.
Did you ever get that law degree?
I got my law degree.
Okay.
I ain't get the bar.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
The bar.
No, you know what?
It was, I'm not going to lie to you. When you finally were able to take the exam, I was just waiting for that happy ending right there. It was like, and he passed the bar. And when I seen you take that walk off with the last $7 in your pocket to go find something to celebrate, and then for to tell me and you didn't pass, bro, I was so heartbroken. Like, I was broken.
Yeah.
It was like, God.
Yeah. The thing about it is that, first of all, at that point in time, when you talk about how strong, strong, and
right,
that was probably the lowest point I was at. That was probably because, the bar takes up so much.
Right.
It takes a lot out of you. And it takes about 5 months to study for. You have to do all this. And I was also still going through the surgeries.
Right.
I was still going through the mental process of trying to, bring the pieces together, or what direction I wanted to go. It was just a lot. So even though I did not pass the bar, I kind of think that it was more of a situation where you're pushing something that might not be for you at that point in time. And I was like, I had to slow down. Even I even said in the movie, I got to slow down. I got to find myself.
Right.
You know, because I lost myself in what I thought that I wanted to be and where I wanted to go.
Right.
You know, and in the bar, I have a lifetime, entry level where I can get into the bar whenever I want to. But if I'm not mentally there, I'm just wasting money. I'm wasting time, and I'm putting way more stress. I'm pushing myself closer to the grave if I try to keep doing something
that is true.
that I'm not happy trying to do.
So let's talk about the third person in this situation, Mr. Nathan. When this all initially happened, he was about 15, 16 years old. And both of you guys were at the trials, correct?
Yes.
What was y'all opinion going into the trial? Because both of you were proverbially victims at the time he was being trial. What was your initial thought going into the trials compared to your initial thoughts at the end of the trial?
I was a little frustrated during the trials only because I wanted him to stay in jail, and they released him to be home with his mom. Then he kept AWOLing, like he kept, not checking in with his officer. He kept being missing and doing all of these things that he wouldn't be able to do if he was, actually behind bars. So it was a bit frustrating at the beginning. We agreed on an amount of time that we thought would be a good amount of time for him to serve. And the judge came somewhere in the middle, which I think it was a good sentence for him. So at the end, I think that the judge gave him a good sentence, but during the beginning and middle of the trial, it was a bit frustrating.
I was actually mad at him myself watching it, because given the opportunity to still be home, and literally all you had to do was stay in the house. There's more stuff for kids to do home now than there has ever been, period. Let it been our childhood and you had to stay in the house one day, we would have lost our minds. We had no way to communicate with our friends. Therefore, it was chores. Chores definitely would have been bad. House has been sparkling. Y'all don't understand. Y'all don't.
Like, I think he was still up to no good.
I think he was.
Trial, I think he was doing stuff he was
I
not
definitely
supposed to
think
do.
he was up to no. He was. The one thing I got from him was he is very easily influenceable.
Yes.
All it took was a certain person or peoples to say, let's go do A, B, C, D.
Yes.
And no working legs or not, he was still down for it. Right. And they were definitely willing and able to come get him. And it was normal, because even when the mom said that one time when they came to get him, they completely left his wheelchair to go and do hood rat things with his friends, to say, as the proverbial phrase is out there now. And I do feel like, honestly, he should have sat. But I can also see the judge POV playing devil's advocate. A 15-year-old who is immobilized in a system where being bullied, being tortured, being picked on is easy. He was basically a sitting duck. Yes. Had he stayed in those situations. But unfortunately, I guess he didn't see it from that point of view and continued to do what he was doing. So what about you? Because you actually eventually end up looking at him face to face when it was all said and done.
Yeah, you know what though, and I don't discount anybody's anger or frustration, or anything when it comes down to these situations. Because one of the things I always say, we walk our own path when it goes down this. I can't judge anybody. I feel a little different than Victoria, but you also see my process. Right. One of the things that we do agree on is that I really felt that putting him back in that situation that created him, without just being at home, right? And not and just with an ankle monitor, which obviously you saw he had no regard for in the first place. Right. I thought that was going to be a problem. But when the DA is telling us that this is the only options that you have, you also have to come to some type of, just understanding, or just say, hey, listen, this is how it's going to be. I have no control over it. Right. But once he started AWOLing, which I knew he was going to do, and he just knew that this was the bad situation. That's when I really started pushing for him to get to go to adult court. Right. Because I thought that structure might help him, even though being away from that household,
Right.
And it's nothing. This has nothing to do to slander his mother or anything like that. It just, it's just
the
how.
environment.
It's the
It's
environment. It's an environment.
Like if you have a recovering alcoholic or a recovering addict, you don't want to put them back in the same spaces where they can have easy access to it.
Exactly.
And not saying that the household was a bad household, but we all come from a household where even one or two parents, our parents can be very busy. So there's a little bit more freedom for us to be able to move around at times unseen.
And we don't know what his triggers were.
We don't know what his triggers were.
You know what I'm trying to say? The thing about it is we can look at the house and say that was a perfect situation. But for him, he's like, hey, I get mad every time I see this, or, and so we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
That.
We don't know.
Yeah. So, and so, but, when it comes down to the sentencing and things like that, I really think that I kind of going, like you said, the devil's advocate route is that, he's in a wheelchair and he's about to be in there with a bunch of grown men.
Right.
And one of the things that we have to understand, and, even though I was asking for 5 years, they wanted the maximum of the 12 and a half in, 7.5 out. The concept is that dude was going to come back to our community.
Right.
And my thought process is, how prepared is he to become a citizen,
right?
And recover from the mistake that he made, which, obviously shooting me,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And I'm sitting up this and I'm feeling like, okay, if I can get over it and I can forgive, why can't this system have the same type of empathy in their heart? You know what I'm saying? But that's not what it's built for. That's what we found out.
Not at all. What did they end up giving him? I can't remember.
12 and a half in, 7.5 under supervision when he gets out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
And the thing about it is that he's never going to get that felony yoke around his neck taken away. So he's always going to live with
it's always going to have to deal with it. My sister, who, when she made a mistake, she only ended up doing 3 years, but she got slapped with the felony tag on her.
Mm-hmm.
And watching her last 9 years of just trying to live,
mm-hmm.
it has really been difficult. Job opportunities have been taken away from her simply because that tag showed up for her.
Mm-hmm.
Even the person who was the key witness in the situation even came to her clearance hearing to say, hey, we were 2 different people at the time when this happened. I've forgiven her. She's forgiven me. We are grown as people. Why are you guys still holding this over her head? So eventually she's doesn't have it on her anymore.
That's wonderful.
But it's the simple fact that just the frustration of just trying to live an everyday life. With him only being a child at the time when all this occurred, when he's come out, he's not going to know what adulthood in everyday society looks or feels like
at all.
So there's no way behind bars can ever prepare him for that, because he doesn't know what he's being prepared for.
Right.
Unfortunately. So I'm definitely, I would love to have a conversation with him one day.
I would too. The thing about it is that, I know we're going to go into it later, but one of the things that I can ram my head against the wall and talk about all the experiences I've had growing up and things like that. But these kids, they need another voice.
They do.
They need another voice to be congruent with all of me, Vicky, and everybody to talk about how our community needs to come together, and that it's not us versus them. It's not we trying to stop y'all from doing something. It's all of us saying, hey, listen, let's all get to a certain point. Right. And I definitely would love for him to, speak out and talk about the mistakes that, I'm sure that he's feeling like I could have did something different.
I think one of the biggest things is we need to change the perception of the youth. Our generations before us had the thought that children are to be seen, not heard. So a lot of times kids would have situations that they had no one to speak to about. Somebody that was impartial, who was not there because you made a mistake. We need more mentorship, but we need more mentorships from those people who understand it, who don't look at it like you're a problem child and you're only here because you're a problem child. No, we need more people who will sit down and be like, all right, what's going on in your everyday life? I understand that. I've been there myself. Have you tried this? Have you did this? Why is this a problem? I say that because I recently lost a young man who was introduced to me about a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very heavy issues with his mental health, anger problems out this world. He eventually ended up writing a book about his inability to control his mental health and a lot of things that he was dealing with. And in his book, he laid out all of his triggers in so many words. And when he launched his book, he did not know how to go about going through the process of, getting the word out about his book. So I took him under my wing. We would have conversations. I would treat him like a little brother. I didn't care you had these anger issues. I didn't care that you were over here. I didn't care about none of the problems. One black man to another black man, to the point where I have a habit now that I will reach out to my friends. How's your mental health today? Because something like simple as asking, where's your headspace at, can make the biggest difference in how that person deals with that day. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, I ended up losing communication with him, partially because I ended up being in the hospital with COVID for about 4 weeks. That my recovery, I was separated from everybody. So when it came time to start communicating with everybody, he kind of got lost in the rotation. He reached out to me in regards to his new book. So I'm sitting here excited for talking to him about it. He hits me up saying, "Hey Tone, when you gonna have me come through to do my book tour? When you gonna have me come through to do my interview?" And I was like, I got you. And this was during the time we were doing some major restructure. Never got a chance to get him in. End up accidentally one day stumbling across a young lady's page and her boohooing on the page because her cousin killed himself. After doing a little bit of research, seen the name. Remember, he changed his screen name to this name prior to before I had COVID, and realized it was the same person. Okay. Being, of course, me being the empath I am, I immediately absorbed all that frustration as, what if I had reached out to him? What if he came through this particular week instead of me saying, come through next week? What if I just said, hey, bro, hit me up at the 0433 number? Something as simple as that could have completely took an individual who looked at the world as his enemy to being able to be here maybe one more day. So, and sometimes that's literally the difference between the suicide person to a young boy carjacking to a young man walking into a school and making a very bad decision. It's simply just having someone that they can talk to who's been there, but don't judge them for it. And I don't think we have enough of that in society right now. I think everybody wants to be the man, but nobody wants to be the support.
Well, the thing about it is that you were talking about the structures that have changed since our
Right.
parents was around. One of the things that we definitely weren't used to in my, when we talk about my parents and my father and things like that, they were constricted just through society. My father came from, Little Rock, Arkansas, where, there was only certain bubblers he could drink at and things like that. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So now we understand, and we're in generations in which we have a lot more freedoms. We have a lot more rights and things like that. And those structures of church and society aren't there to constrict young men and their thinking and things like that, or young women also. So, we have to be conscientious of doing exactly what you're saying. We have to set up, and it's our responsibility to set up these pathways for these kids so that they can understand that they have hope. One of the things I always say is that we have to walk away from having these kids thinking, well, I ain't got nothing to really lose if I pick up this gun. We got to have these kids on the mindset that they could saying, I got everything to lose if I pick up this gun, and that's where we are falling short at this point in time.
Right.
And exactly what you were just saying, when you talk about your empathy, you empathetic. What did you say? You're
an empath. So I'm very empathetic.
Yes.
By nature, just naturally.
Exactly. And the thing about it is that we cannot always react to gun violence.
Right.
We have to start being proactive. We have to start thinking about, where do we go to stop these kids? Where is the stopgap? Where do we change these kids? And it's not after the fact they did something wrong. It's before they get there,
Before.
And that's what you were thinking about,
Right? Because
Okay,
lucky for me, I grew up in the 53206. Okay. Born and raised, stand proudly. Hey man, I love my little block. My little block is fun. I don't care what nobody say. I don't see where all this negativity they be showing on TV come from. That's not what I grew up in. But it was what I grew up in.
Right.
It was just we see it differently because the media highlights the negative, but they don't highlight the positives, But one thing my mom did for me was she kept me in programs. When MPS and the public school system eventually stopped having after school programs for the middle schoolers on up, my mom reached out and tried to find other programs to be a part of. One of them I ended up being a part of was Upper Bound. That was my first interaction with the college life. Now, college life wasn't for me when it came down to it, but just having that separation from what I would see every day opened my mind to have more things that I want to be a part of. Now I have more goals. I have different directions. I was good at basketball, but I wasn't the best. So that wasn't my way out. I seen what the drug game did to my uncles. Didn't want to go down that route. Okay. So I'm going to make money. I'm a smart kid, very mathematical. I had my goals. I was going to be an accountant till I realized how boring it was. Not going to do that. Boring. Till I realized how boring it was. But the simple fact was Upper Bound gave me the opportunity to see more than just what was in front of me. I realized that I could do A, B, C, D. That's actually how I got my first introduction into audio video production in high school, which was a hobby to me. My mom just thought I wanted to be a rapper, so she really didn't want me to do nothing with it. But then over time, she realized I wanted to be behind the scenes. I wanted to be the guy who controlled the narrative. And that's how I ended up getting to this point eventually. And it even took her a minute to realize, like, you can be more than just this. She just wanted me to be a doctor. Like, I don't like blood. I don't like needles. How am I going to be a doctor and I can't even cut nobody? See, this doesn't work, mother. But I know she's going to be listening to this one because she always listens to the show, so she's going to laugh at that. But the fact that I had other opportunities is what my biggest things was. I interacted with people from different walks of life, and I was able to have those conversations. I had a best friend who lived in Brookfield. I had a girlfriend who literally lived in the same area that you were staying in. I had buddies that lived in different projects while I'm living in different projects at the same time. So I was able to see the world a little bit more than just the 4 blocks that it was around, which actually helped me understand that there's more to life than just this. Unfortunately, a lot of our kids don't have that opportunity. I got lucky with Upper Bound because I was going at North Division at the time. But what about those who don't go to these, impoverished schools that they call, who goes to 220 schools that have all the things in the world, but they still don't have those avenues they need because they don't fit into these environments? I can go to Greenfield. Actually, I knew someone that went to Greenfield, and they didn't like it because they didn't fit into the Greenfield way of life, because we're taught as kids when someone hits you, you hit them back. They're taught as kids when someone hits you, you go tell an authority. That's 2 different mentalities. Therefore, you don't fit in with them, and that can cause problems.
And they do now. Excuse me. My son, he goes to Whitefish Bay High School. And they do have programs now. He's a part of AAMI. It's called the African American Male Initiative. And what they do is they take the African American males, and then they also have an African American female initiative. So they take like the African American students from these, primarily non-diverse schools, and they put them together and they do different activities and they have programs, and it's like an upper bound type of program. So they do have schools like that, and they go to a lot of the different schools. Like I know Brown Deer High School is a part of it. Whitefish Bay, Shorewood, Greenfield. So a lot of the different schools are a part of this program. Like this summer, my son is going to Washington, D.C. With the program. So they do have some programs like that now that some of these kids can participate in. They just need more programs like that for MPS.
Right. That's what I was going to say too.
They don't have that for MPS.
And that's where I'm glad they have those programs, but those programs need to be more open to who can be a part of them. I mean, I get it. Those schools that you all name, they have a huge influx of donations from alumni. They control the narrative of the school. So when you're starting to get more successful African-American families or starting to get more blended families, they want to be properly represented. So you get these programs. But what about schools that are heavily diverse? What about your North Divisions, your Marshalls, your Custards, your Washingtons, who these are what everybody is here. And I'm not saying that these kids don't have hope. They do, but they also need someone to be there or some way for them to say, you don't have to wait 10 years to get to your goal. Yeah. You can start working on your goals now. Everything doesn't have to be college bound. One of the biggest issues I have with the MPS school system is you push 2 to 3 schools as your good schools. Those are the only schools you see when they are talking about it, to the point that here we are 30 years removed from high school for some people, and they're still bragging about how great their high school is. Like, at this point in time, high school should not even be a conversation other than your oldest child or youngest child is getting ready to graduate. Right. Should be the only conversation when it comes to high schools. I've never been ashamed to say I went to North Division. Okay, I tell people proudly. Like, I went to North Division. My dad went to North Division. My auntie went to North Division. I don't know what North Division y'all keep talking about, but none of that happened at my North. We had fun. We learned. We had a med prep program, meaning that we had a built-in program to create more doctors. You went to a school that just wants you to go to college and be more in debt. They don't even give you a goal when you get in college. They just want you to go to college, and we're supposed to acknowledge the greatness of your school. No.
Well, you know, the thing about it is that, and I agree, because even though I will say I proudly went to Milwaukee Tech, 89. Love y'all.
Oh, you went to the old Tech, not the see-through Tech.
That's real. That's what that's when they was making right. But the thing about it is that, but coming from that mindset, just what you were just saying about, you know, we did have a situation where, you know, King Tech, you know, they were like really specific schools saying they were the good schools of MPS. But we had a technology now, and I tell these kids all the time that, you know, especially in today's world, where you made the great point of, when you talk about, if you don't have a thought process going into college, you can just spend money. You just putting yourself in debt.
And that's what they want.
And that's what they want. But there is, you know, we have MATC here and we have the, you know, the tech programs and trade programs in which they need people. Fact. They are begging people to get into them. But we got to start steering our kids and say, hey, listen, you don't have to have the traditional thought process. You can go get a trade.
Somewhere in the 80s, and as great as A Different World was, I love that show. They did something to the African-American community that I don't think was intentional. They shifted the mind state where African-Americans always had a trade. Every male in the family had some skill or trade, whether they knew how to work on cars, they knew how to build houses, they were technicians, electricians. They had a skill set that at the end of the day, if there's 4 males in the house, they can take care of this whole house without ever having to go outside to see anybody.
Self-sufficient.
Okay, very self-sufficient. But then the influx of going to college happened. At the point that MATCs were looked upon as lower colleges. This was, you go to MATC, you must not be good enough.
Right.
When in actuality, a lot of things that people went to a 4-year university for, you could have did at MAT in 2 years, been on a job right away, had 2 years of experience. It wasn't until a lot of these kids, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you're graduating with this great degree, but no jobs.
Right.
So now you just went to school to get this master's degree for a career field where you only can get in at entry level. So you're now back at square one. Meanwhile, the same classmate who decided to go to MATC took the entry-level job to pay for college while they went to get a regular associate's degree in the same field, but just on a lower level, is now your boss.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because they work their way into companies. Companies do not care about degrees anymore. They're only using degrees now to be able to help weed out the applications.
Right.
That's literally because I went to go look at something. I can't remember which job I was applying for, but I think it was an audio video job at my previous company. And on there, they wanted you to have a bachelor's degree in this. Mm-hmm. But when I looked at what they're doing, it's like, so you just want me to hold a camera and I need a bachelor's degree to do that?
Right. Right.
Now, I already have an associate degree in audio video production, so I know exactly what I'm doing, and I have on-the-job training, but I can't apply because I don't have a bachelor's degree. So you just realize you have an inside person who's already on your payroll that you just told no to because I don't have this piece of paper. So you go and you hire this person with this bachelor's degree only for you to find out that that person works for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My wife and I both have associate's degrees. Kim is a proud graduate of MAPTC. I went to a junior college in Illinois, in Spoon River. We decided to go, get our law degrees and things like that. But those options, you should always keep those options open, and that's how I always feel, and one of the things that we were talking about Nathan, and one of the things I want to look forward to is trying to talk about re-entry. These kids are going to, not only are these kids who feel rudderless coming out of high school or even just struggling through high school, but when these kids have these a felony or something on there and they don't have federal funds, there has to be a pathway that we're going to give them. Right. And in a re-entry program where we can show them that they can go ahead and get those degrees and get those trades I think it's something that's very needed.
Definitely
in our society.
I feel like re-entry programs should be introduced while they're still in. Mm-hmm. At least have them start part of it, which should be part of the requirement in order for them to be able to be released, unless they just did the whole time. But even then, I still feel like you should be required to do that. We also need more businesses that are willing to deal with second chance felons.
Absolutely.
I think the fear of the word felon causes so many people to not want to give opportunities. Like, just because you see that name or that word, first of all, you don't know the crime.
Right.
Right. So you don't know what happened that got him here.
Yep.
It could have been a mistake that they made, or it could have been full-blown embezzlement. We don't know. Okay.
Don't know.
But if they're willing to change their life around, you should at least give them the opportunity. And once again, without prejudgment.
Yep.
Okay. You see the word. One thing I used to love about CYD when it used to be a big thing was that's how my uncle got his second chance. Mm-hmm. They took him under his wing, and my uncle was there so much that they thought that he was the founder's son, which I used to laugh about. That it was like they really like, bro, do you ever be home? Maybe I want to kick it with you sometime. But it's like, no, I got this program to do. I got this, and he really started living his life completely differently than what he was when he went in, because he made a bad choice. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. Okay. Even though he wasn't doing nothing this time, but because he was notorious for being in that area, he got lumped in with the whole situation, unfortunately. But we need more re-entry programs. We need people who are willing to give second chances at a fair wage as well, too. Minimum wage is 15, at least give them 15.
Listen, I the reason why I say this is because it's coming from a place of example. My brother, while I was going through this, my brother was doing 7.5 years in prison, and while he was there, he got his welding certificate, right, and it changed his life. From when he went in, right, he had to fight to get that, but he was given the chance. He was made a relationship with the people that were working. He was able to do his apprenticeship before, and when he came out, he was able to pick the job that he wanted, and it's amazing. And I got other friends and things like that have gone through, people who have went back and people who have also strived. Right. And we can't make that judgment. One of the things I say about this whole situation is that we have to stop thinking about how we react with anger and frustration. And I'm not trying to, like I said, everybody walks their own path. I'm not taking that away from anyone. Do what you have to do. But at one point in time, we got to realize that we have to invest.
Right.
We have to invest. If we want anything back, if we don't invest with love and understanding and everything, only thing we're going to get back is anger. So if we don't put that into these people, put it into people and let them know that they have something to come back to,
right?
They're just going to come back with their guards up and and willingness to go ahead and do whatever to survive. And that's not where we should be at.
Exactly. We need to invest completely back into our community. I think that's one of the biggest things that also stopped happening into our community as people start to become more successful and more established. We run away from where we came from.
Yeah.
And I get it. Sometimes you have to leave an area for your own mental sanity. I get that. But at the same time, don't go and put all of your investments in somebody else's neighborhood because it seems to be a better place. Look back to see where the opportunities are raised. Irony is, with me being a podcaster, I do tend to listen to other podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite ones I listen to right now is Earn Your Leisure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a financial investment podcast by DJ Envy and one of his buddies. And recently they had an event here in Milwaukee, maybe about a year or two ago, where they came in and they were talking small business and everything. And they sat here and said that Milwaukee right now is a real estate hub where you could really, truly prosper because the value of our homes are so low that anybody can walk in and literally increase the value of our community.
Mm-hmm.
And our own people don't look at it that way.
Right.
They're looking at, oh, well, this neighborhood is bad. I would never put anything over there. Well, you do know that the neighborhood is bad because there's nothing over there worth value to them. If you were to give them something that is value, yes, in the beginning, you're going to have those people with the simple mind state of saying, oh, there's something nice. Let me take it. More so than it's like, hey, we're putting this here for y'all. If you keep this neighborhood good, you keep this clean, we'll put a second one over here. We'll put it here. You know what? I have these new buildings and these new businesses. I need employees. I'm not going to go look outside the neighborhood for employees. I'm going to look in the neighborhood for employees. So that one person who was struggling for a job now works 2 blocks away from home, which now is more convenient when it comes to childcare or being able to get to work. And maybe they want to do more hours now because they don't have to travel far. They ain't got to worry about paying $90 for gas,
Exactly.
So that's more money in their pocket. Making the community be a part of the growth can not only increase the value, but increase the respect.
Right.
If I put 5 businesses up and down Center Street and everybody that works there lives in the neighborhood, my fear of being robbed goes down tremendously because now your neighborhood gets this bad rep. Now, these businesses can't strive over here, but instead, you have a son that's in high school. Give him a job right around the corner. You're going to care about that building now because your son works there. Your nephew works there. Your auntie's there. I'm providing services that your grandmother can benefit from. You're going to start caring.
Yep.
Because I'm catering to the community. We don't do that. We'll slap a Walmart or slap a Whole's Food over here, and then it was like, hey, come eat better. No.
Right.
I got a food market right down the street. Why don't we go get from the food market, and then all of our stuff is freshly grown because everybody that's working at the food market, they're Black-owned farmers.
It would be lovely. Vicky, how did you feel about being, you had your ownership? Did you feel isolated? Did you feel like you were part of the community when you were living over by King? I'm sorry for that.
No, you beat me to it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
I did. I felt like I was definitely part of the neighborhood, part of the community. I liked the area when I first moved over there. It was all homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good area. And then it seemed like the homeowners all started to move out. It was a lot of renters moving in, and the neighborhood started to go down. The property value started to go down. The neighborhood started to go down, and it just was not where I felt comfortable anymore. So I didn't want to be in that area. I wanted my kids to be able to walk around the neighborhood. I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted to feel safe. So I wanted to find an area where I would feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to find an area that my kids will feel safe. And even when I would walk around my area and exercise, I didn't feel safe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel in the area you are now?
It's like my area is like a bubble. Like I didn't used to have like after dinner walks. And everybody in our neighborhood, they have after dinner walks, and they're walking their dogs and they're riding bikes and they're walking, and it's very family oriented. And that's what I really like. I love, we've been over there now since 2014.
Okay.
So I love the area, and I love it. I love my area.
We need to bring back after dinner walks, people. Just go outside and just walk around.
Mm-hmm.
Find your neighborhood buddy and go take a walk.
You know,
That's what I'm saying. You know. But I don't want to keep you guys here any much longer. I want you to go ahead and enjoy today. So let me ask you this question. What is the goal that you want to get from the documentary?
I want to bring. I want our stories to bring a different narrative. I want people to see what happened in all three of our perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective of me just not feeling safe and feeling like I had to defend myself. From Claude's, his perspective as well. And just him having that empathy that at first I didn't even have for Nathan.
Right.
I was so angry about everything that I had to put myself, that I was in that position, like having, a son just a little bit younger than Nathan, having to, to use my firearm, which I never thought I would have to even use. Like, I always felt like it's better to have and not need than need and not have,
right?
And I never thought I would have to do that. But I always say that Claude had a level of empathy that I didn't even have, and a level of strength that made me feel even stronger and helped me get through it. But I want even to bring a broader perspective about firearms. And I'm not against firearms. I have one. I have several. I'm not against high powered firearms. I have several. I'm not against any of that. I just believe that firearms should be in the hands of people who should have them. 18-year-olds should not have a high power assault rifle.
Exactly.
They should not. They're not mature enough. They're not where they should be mentally. Their frontal cortex is not developed enough to be able to have a high power assault rifle.
Their frontal cortex is not developed enough to have a lot of stuff in life.
No, so
some of them not even developed to have a little boyfriend or girlfriend, let alone a high power firearm.
And there's a conversation that needs to be had, and I think that this film brought up a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different conversations, and it's something that I think people should watch with their teenagers. They should watch this movie with their 15 and 16-year-olds. People should know where their kids are at night. There's no reason that Nathan should have been out at 1:00 in the morning, because it was it was almost 1:00 in the morning when I was coming home.
Oh no, I didn't know that late.
It was very, very late. It was almost 1:00.
Yeah, he should have been home
with me. And thank you so much for saying that. One of the things that I try to say, I want to be an example of a thought process that can be changed, but I don't also want to say I'm the only example or only thought process. One of the things I have high respect for Vicky and what she had to go through and her own path that she had to walk. And those are the concerns that we all have to take in consideration. I'm trying to say, when we try to make our decisions of how we deal with these situations. But, one of the things that I really want to, accomplish with this film is start thinking about not how we react to crime, but how we are going to start to make in our mind of how we go upstream. The superpower, I think, with this film is that it humanizes the ripple effects of gun violence in our community and how it's tearing us apart at the seams. And at one point in time, we got to know, if anybody knows about sewing, you can't just stop sewing the hole. You got to start at the little corner at the very end where it keeps on pulling apart, and that's where we're missing. We're trying to sew right. We start going to put a needle right through the middle and acting as if that's going to keep the whole together, and it doesn't. We have to start to go up the stream and really start thinking about what our solutions are and being preventative in getting these kids in a mindset of which they're going to, make proper choices. So that's where I really want to do. And when it comes down to it, we need to really start thinking about options that we're going to be giving, everyone. We cannot think we're going to heal children when they're going home to a household that is broken, have a lot of trauma that's not dealt with, a lot of issues, and we're going to say, hey, let's fix these kids. It doesn't start there. We have to start thinking about the parents. We have to start thinking about our community and us as a society of how we're going to deal with this. So, more to come. I'm definitely working. One of the things you just talked about Lee, I live in Charlotte right now, but me and my wife come back to Milwaukee. We're doing everything we can back in our own neighborhoods and our own community to help the people that we know. But, we definitely want to reinvest and really do what we can, our own part. But everyone needs to know that they have their own thing that they can do. That's the strength of our community. Do one thing. Motivate. I hope my movie motivates everybody to do something.
It does. The few people that I have shown it to, or I have suggested for them to watch, usually within the first 3 comments, it's always, this needs to be shown in schools.
Yeah.
That's usually the first things that come out of most people. I'm like, they need to start showing this in schools. And I'm like, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. And not just only because show it here in Milwaukee, of course, that would just make it relatable for a lot of people. But overall, it's definitely a good representation of the after effects of decisions. Things that, especially with kids, we don't think about. The financial struggles that come in regards to it, the medical situation in regards to you, the PTSD in regards to you. Everybody looks at the victims, but we don't look at that sometimes the criminal is a victim in other situations that causes a ripple effect.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that he's not wrong for what he did, because the one thing he did was he admitted he was guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
Right away, he accepted the responsibilities of what he did. Now, I don't know if he said he accepted it because it made him look cool to his friends, because we realized he was very easily manipulated, or he just really sat down and realized I really, really messed up,
Yeah.
But when you look back to it, this is definitely something I would recommend to be put into the school. I'm going to reach out to a few of my superintendent friends to see if there's a way that this could be added to some kind of rotation for one of the classes somehow. Maybe pick an age category or grade that it should be aired as part of the curriculum or something like that. But I definitely could see this being part of a school curriculum.
I'm working with the impact team. We are the league. We're building out a curriculum for the program. You can go to, when Claude Got Shot.org gives a lot of information. You can see, the trailer and things like that. The movie is actually, the film is actually streaming on PBS.org.
Yep. At
this point in time, so you can see that. In October, it should be on all streaming services. That's what we just found out. So yeah. So the thing about it is that it took 5 years to make this movie, and I'm hoping that I can use this as an impact tool for the next 5 years, and that's what our goals are. So unfortunately, Santana couldn't come today because her son had an accident. But if anybody needs to contact her, Santana Wilson, Coleman Wilson, and she will definitely be able to help anybody get a screening and information on how to do that.
No problem. So once again, I want to thank both of y'all for coming out and doing this particular episode. Make sure you guys go take a look at that. It's definitely on PBS. It is definitely worth the watch. Shout out to Independent Lens. Because of this, I actually seen a few other ones that they've done that are phenomenal. So I have a new docu-series I will be invested in on my own free time. And make sure you guys check us out on all streaming platforms. That's Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever else you listen to your podcast at. Make sure you check out all the other shows here on TDR Network. We have a little bit of everything and then some. So with that being said, thank our guests once again for coming in, and you guys enjoy the rest.